Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. So, today we're going to unpack a really fascinating framework for achieving what you might call a truly luminous, carefree mindset. Because let's be real, we all have those days where our thoughts just feel incredibly heavy, right? We get completely bogged down by anxiety, suspicion, or just the sheer everyday complexity of modern life. But what if optimism wasn't just this fleeting mood that comes and goes? What if it was actually a structured architectural choice? To figure that out, we're diving into a book called Progress Thinking. Specifically, we are going to take an analytical look at Chapter 3, which focuses on the core philosophy of a bright life. The author basically gives us this highly visual, metaphorical guide to fundamentally hitting the reset button on how we process the world around us. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the foundation of progress thinking and a bright life. Then learn how to sever thought entanglements, discover what it means to live carefree and transparently, establish why tomorrow is always better, and finally look at spreading the happiness circle. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, Progress Thinking and a Bright Life. This is where we lay down the absolute foundation of this optimistic mindset. So what is a bright life? The crucial takeaway here is that the author does not treat this as just, trying to be happy when things miraculously go your way. Not at all. It's a deliberate, disciplined practice. It is the conscious choice to simplify your worldview so much that it essentially mirrors the sun. The goal is to observe, think, and live with absolute brightness. You're making an active choice to absorb that light and reflect it right back out, totally regardless of your current circumstances. But how on earth do we actually do that when our minds are so chaotic? Well, that brings us to Section 2, Severing Thought Entanglements, which is all about decluttering the internal mind. The text directly calls out those heavy, complicated thoughts we all carry around. We have this massive tendency to overthink things, right? We build up these incredibly complex webs of anxiety, doubt, and suspicion. Our heads get totally tangled up, and frankly, it is just exhausting trying to navigate all that mental clutter every single day. And the author gives us this incredibly vivid metaphor for dealing with it. Quote, cut through the entanglements in your head, just like sweeping away cobwebs with a broom. Just think about that visual for a second. When you see a dusty cobweb in the corner of your room, you don't stand there carefully untangling it thread by thread, do you? No way. You just grab a broom and sweep the whole shebang away in one swift motion. The suggestion here is that we have to treat our spiraling anxieties the exact same way. Just sweep them away to find some clarity. And once you've swept those cobwebs away, you arrive at the state described in Section 3, living carefree and transparently. This is the state of being totally unobstructed. And this brilliantly illustrates what that feels like. The author introduces this visual of a sunlit shallow stream, one that's only about 20 to 30 centimeters deep. Just picture that transparent stream in your mind. The sunlight cuts right through the clear water, hits the riverbed, and literally makes the sand shine like gold. The author equates a carefree life to this exact image. Now, being carefree doesn't mean you just don't care about anything. It means your mind is as transparent and free-flowing as this totally unburdened river. You aren't holding on to grudges, you're not hiding these deep, dark resentments. You are living honestly, out in the open, letting the sunlight reach all the way to the bottom. And to make this even more concrete, the text translates this mental clarity into a physical, highly relatable analogy, taking off a heavy coat. Think about wearing a heavy winter coat stuffed with bricks of burden. This represents living with those complex, suspicious thoughts. It's basically like walking around on a beautiful, sunny day wearing a thick, stifling parka. We literally all do it sometimes, right? Clinging to our worries like it's some sort of protective layer. But the text urges us to drop the bricks and change into light spring clothes. Think about how physically relieving it feels to step outside totally unburdened after a long freezing winter. That exact feeling of lightness, that's what we should be striving for mentally every single day. Now, keeping that light spring-like mindset requires an anchor, which brings us to Section 4, Tomorrow is Always Better. This is the required outlook of hope. The core tenet of this relentless, forward-looking optimism is super straightforward. Tomorrow is more wonderful than today. The day after tomorrow is more wonderful than tomorrow. It's essentially a non-negotiable belief system if you want a bright life. Because without the specific anchor of hope, it is way too tempting to just put that heavy winter coat of anxiety right back on. To drive this home, the text draws on nature again, showing how hope acts exactly like the changing of the seasons. Spring sunlight always comes. That soft sunlight will melt away even the accumulated snow. I absolutely love this because it is a brilliant reminder of inevitability. Look, no matter how deep the snow of hardship or sorrow gets piled up in your life, the spring sunlight of hope will arrive. It always does. And when it does, it gently but effectively melts away everything that was frozen and stuck. This whole mindset is about trusting completely in the arrival of that warmth. Now, you might be wondering, isn't this all just a highly individualized practice? Well, Section 5 shows us otherwise. Spreading the happiness circle looks at the external impact and the actual multiplication of joy. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the almost mathematical approach the author takes to happiness. This internal decluttering we've been talking about, it's ultimately designed to be shared. It's not supposed to be kept in a vacuum. Just watch how this scales. It starts super simply. One person shares joy with two people. Suddenly, 3 people are better off than 2. From there, the circle expands to 5, then 10 people. And because joy and a bright life in general is so contagious, it spreads like wildfire. It reaches 100, then 1,000 people. It scales up to 10,000. It just keeps compounding and multiplying outward into society. 1 million. To put that into perspective, this underscores the ultimate goal of the entire philosophy, a massive scale of shared happiness, literally an entire society elevated and brightened. And the craziest part, it all originates from just one person's initial choice to sweep away their mental cobwebs, drop those heavy bricks, and simply smile. Your internal transparency truly dictates the external world's brightness. So as we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with a direct challenge, a little thought experiment. What heavy winter coat of thought can you take off today? What complex suspicion or tangled up anxiety can you just take a broom to and sweep away right now? Because remember, shedding that weight doesn't just make your own life as bright and carefree as a sunlit stream. It might actually be the exact spark needed to eventually brighten the lives of a million others. Pretty cool to think about, right? Catch you next time.